Good morning. It's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself. And today I want to talk about going home. What does that mean? It means, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, she always had the power to go home. She always had the answers inside her. She could always click her heels at any point along that long journey going to Oz and, seeing that the wizard didn't exist. She had that power all along, and it took that whole journey in order for her to get there. But it doesn't have to take all of us. So today I want to talk about my disconnection with my inner voice and my intuition, and a few moments that might help you see, where I got off course and how maybe you don't have to. I wanted to talk about a couple of really poignant moments in my life that changed my relationship with the medical profession. Small moments, but these were some of the biggest moments that made me question everything. These were some of the moments in my life when I realized that I had turned off my intuition. I had broken a promise and a trust with my intuitive self. And it was these moments that made me feel like I had lied to myself. It was these moments that made me feel like I had gone wrong. I had gone off course. I had strayed off course, and I looked around and I didn't realize how I had gotten there. It was these moments that made me feel lost and alone. And there was this deep knowing that I had gone off course because I had shut down my own voice and my own intuition. So let me just go over a couple of them. So the first one was when my mom was dying. She had stage 4 cancer. She'd been doing rounds of chemo. She was probably 8 months into her cancer journey at this point, with very, very difficult treatment that made her really sick. She was in a lot of pain. It was difficult to watch. And for those of you who have lost someone to this battle with cancer, my heart goes out to you. And, for those of you who've lost someone to the actual, the disease, but also the treatment, my heart goes out to you. Because, it was very hard watching a vibrant, amazing woman who was told she had cancer. It was the shock of her life. No one expected to hear that. And to somebody who had all this vital energy and saying that they were going to beat this, they were going to do whatever it took. And then the treatments over the course of the next 8 months. I mean, she lasted 9 months, but at this point we were up to about 8 months. Just took the life out of her, right? She went from a vibrant, fighting, spirit in her eyes kind of woman to thin, sick, in pain, suffering, the hope and even the life force out of her eyes. Somebody who had just been ravaged. And, at this point, all the way along, I wanted to believe, I wanted to believe that she was doing the right thing. And I think she wanted to believe that she was doing the right thing. But with each round, it just got more and more impossible to believe that she was going to beat this. Anyways, at this point we were 8 months in, and she was a shell of her once self. She was on pain medication. She was throwing up. She was on all kinds of... She was thin. She had no life in her eyes. She was, she was dying. So this is when they switched her over to a morphine pump. A pump, that when she pushed the button, it would go directly into her bloodstream, and she would get this relief that she needed because the other medication wasn't working anymore. So this nurse was switching her over, and I had this voice in the pit of my stomach. I pulled the nurse aside. I talked to her, and I looked into her eyes, and I said, I was naive at this point. This was a long time ago. And I said, I don't think this is a good idea for you to be putting my mom on these heavy duty drugs. What is going to happen when she beats this? And how's she ever going to get off this kind of pain medication? How's she ever going to get off this? And the nurse looked at me, and she paused, and I looked at her. And there was this moment when I knew that nurse knew something that I didn't. It's just a connection with someone's eyes, and I'm not sure if she felt a pain in her heart. I'm not sure if she felt the same pain that I did at that moment. But she said she's not gonna get better. She'll never have to come off these. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, this is palliative. This is she's not gonna beat this. And at that moment, I felt like the life force drained out of me, because that was the first point in my whole journey with my mom that anyone had looked me in the eyes and told me my mom wasn't gonna beat it. Even the doctors never used the word palliative. Even the doctors let us believe the entire time that by taking this chemotherapy, she could be cured, she could be better. Nobody ever told me that she was never gonna make it, that this treatment was never gonna help her, that it was never, she never had a chance. And at that moment, my trust eroded in all her doctors, in all that they didn't tell me, in family members who are medical professionals and what they didn't tell me, and nobody who had the guts to tell us that all these chemotherapy treatments that she was doing wasn't curative. She didn't have a chance. It was palliative from the get-go. All of this was useless from the get-go. And if we didn't do it, she was gonna die anyway. And she probably would have had a much better quality of life than what I saw happen to her over the course of up to this point, 8 months. She died within a month after that. It was probably about 3 weeks after that that she passed. But I had, a feeling and an unforgiveness in my heart, even though I still wasn't on the natural health path yet, and my personal experience still hadn't happened to me yet. But I brushed that aside because I still had my mom, and I just kind of put it under the rug to a misunderstanding. Like, I don't know, people are willing to overlook a lot of things. I still needed the doctors at this point. I was angry, but I pushed it down and I ignored it, thinking maybe I misunderstood. Maybe we all misunderstood. Maybe they wanted to tell us, or maybe I didn't listen, but that wasn't the case. Anyways, she did die, and it was a painful, grueling death. And, every time she pushed that button, and at the end when I pushed it for her, we thought we were doing the right thing, the humane thing, helping her get out of the excruciating amount of pain that she was in. But it wasn't until later, years later, that, I had a lot of trauma from that, realizing that, it was me that helped kill my mom, that helped push that button, that was giving her the injections, that was the thing that ultimately took her life. And at the time, I just trusted those in power, and I trusted that I was doing the right and the humane thing. And it's been really difficult for me to look back on in a different light all these years later. And it's been really hard to forgive myself for all those moments when I might have known better or done something different. Now, I've had many other, gut instinct moments over the years of my medical history, but none quite so poignant as that moment, until a couple of my own experiences that were as poignant in my own mind and in my own heart. And I believe maybe for the medical practitioner at that moment too, there's just a moment when you connect with somebody, when you look at them in the eye, when you're feeling something and that they might be feeling something too. And I think that feeling that woman had at that moment was guilt, was maybe her own soul searching moment. Maybe it was a moment of, am I helping or am I hurting? But of course, all medical professionals are good people who get into this line of work to help, not to harm. And so I think if there's any question, they also sweep it under the rug. They sweep their feelings or any kind of questions like, could this be doing more harm than good? And I think in order to carry on, they have to sweep those feelings under. And so I don't know that anybody or even most ever experienced that feeling, but I think maybe that she did right at that moment. And there's another experience that I had as well that I'm going to tell you about. I know I have shared this moment on this channel before. I've most certainly shared this moment thousands and thousands of times in in my mind, and I've shared it in therapy. This is a big moment for me, but it was partway into my journey, months into my journey with the psychotropic medications. Anyways, for me, I was at a breaking point, a personal breaking point. You know, I had traveled cross country to visit an institution for what I believed was postpartum depression, though I already knew at this point, my God, that it was not. But I had no other options. It was at this moment when I was holding my baby in my arms, tears running down my face. I was desperate. I was suffering. I was in pain. I had, hundreds of symptoms, and I didn't know what was going on at that point, but I knew that what had happened to me was the medication itself and not some made-up condition. So when I was holding my baby and the doctor was looking me in the eye, this psychiatrist, and he prescribed me all the medications and he pushed them across the table to me, and the doses were astronomical. I mean, baby horses would die on doses, of this magnitude. Probably baby elephants. Sometimes it makes me sick even to think back. It's hard to think back on moments of your life that change everything, right? Anyways, so I wished for the longest time that I could rewrite this moment. This was the moment that I went to therapy over. This was the moment I cried myself to sleep over. If I could only go back to this moment. I mean, there was thousands of moments I wish I could go back to along this journey, right? The very first time I swallowed any pill from my MD. But no, this was the moment. This was the moment that really, if I could go back to any moment, I'd go back right here. I'd go back to so many. Anyway, this is one of them. And so, holding my baby, having them push towards me, knowing in my gut, knowing this was wrong, this was going to do more harm than good, and me looking at the doctor and saying, am I ever going to get off these if I go on this? How am I ever, this is what's happened to me. I think the medication is causing this. Am I going to be able to get off these if I go on it? And he looked at me, and I looked at him. There was that awkward silence again, where our eyes connected. And I've looked at that moment so many times, and I knew in the pit of my gut, and I believe he knew in the pit of his gut what the answer was. And then he finally said, "Oh yeah, it'll be fine. You'll be fine, and you'll be able to go off them when you're ready," which was a lie, and we both knew it. And this is what happens when we abandon our own inner intuition, our own voice, our own link to millions of years of evolution, that we get these gut instincts, we get these feelings. We're guided spiritually in a way. We're guided at the deepest roots of our physiology with instinct and intuition. And when we ignore that and we break the trust with ourselves, because we want to believe and we want to trust and we want to give it to somebody else, and it's easier to give it to somebody else, we break our trust with ourselves. And I had two more moments that I wanted to share that were very poignant for me and very life-changing. And it was moments where my trust deteriorated between me and a system. It was where the cracks started to happen between me and a system that I fully trusted and I fully aligned with, and I would never question, because it would be wrong and bad of me to question. And who was I? Didn't they know everything in their white coats? And who was I? Even with this strong gut feeling, who was I to question it? But these moments change us as human beings. They open our eyes. They're cracks, right? Cracks into what we thought was truth, and then we see behind a veil. It's almost like the movie The Wizard of Oz, and she's going along. She wants to believe she's getting to Oz. He has all the answers. And finally she sees behind the curtain, she sees the crack. And you can't unsee that. Then you feel more lost, because now what are you going to do? But it's not until, moments later in the movie where she realizes that She always had the power. It was always inside her. And she can click her heels together and go home at any moment. And we can all click our heels together and go home at any moment. We all, have the answers inside of us. And I guess my point to this video is that if you see cracks in anything going on right now in the world today, cracks when it comes to the medical institutions or the big business, cracks when it comes to the big food companies, cracks when it comes to the government, cracks when it comes to, these big corporations and the war, or anything that you see going on, when you feel them, when you feel these poignant moments, or when you see something that you can't unsee, or when you start to have a crack or a doubt, a big one, and it changed you and you think, I'll ignore this, I'll push it aside because they know better, they know more, I couldn't possibly know or understand. I just want to urge every one of us to just stop, breathe, and remember, just like Dorothy, we all, are going to come up and see these cracks, and they're going to take us by surprise at different points in our life along this journey. And when we do, we're either going to learn the hard way, like I did, we're going to learn an easier way. And that's just to recognize that a crack exists, to recognize that there's a veil, and to recognize there's more behind it. And our intuition is showing us that there's something behind this crack in the fabric. And when we look, when we're not too afraid to trust ourselves and to trust our voice and to look inside. And so I guess the point of this video is that we can all go home. We can all click those heels. And we never had to go to Oz. We never had to take that journey. Some of us have to. Some of us have to take the long road in order to look behind the veil ourselves and see. It's a little short man. It's not the Wizard of Oz like we thought. So wherever you are on this journey, remember, at any point in it, whether you're at the beginning or the very end, it's not too late to click those heels and realize that you had the power all along. The power's inside you. The answers are inside you. And your gut instincts, your inner voice, your inner guidance, your inner wisdom, all of that is from a spiritual and an evolutionary perspective. Whether we're talking instinct or spiritual guidance here, divine guidance, or whether it's just millions of years of evolutionary instinct and history, but we have those answers inside us. We have that power, that knowing, and it's never too late to go home and to look inside. What became interesting to me over a period of thinking about this and therapy and all my inner healing work and everything I've done over the years to heal some of these moments, what became interesting is not the moments themselves, and not even the fact that for the first long time, I thought I was forgiving the other person. I thought I was forgiving the nurse. I thought I was forgiving the doctor. But in actuality, it turns out I was forgiving myself for those moments when I broke this solemn trust, this vow with myself, when I broke the trust with my inner wisdom, with my inner voice, when I separated from my intuition, when I separated from that divine wisdom. And that was the moment that I needed forgiveness for. It was this separation that I caused, this break in trust with myself. And in turn, I was breaking trust with God. I was breaking trust with the universe. I was breaking trust with millions of years of nature and evolution. We are all connected to everything on this earth. We're all part of everything. We're part of nature. We've evolved from nature. We are nature. We're part of everything. We're connected. We are divinely connected. And at that moment, I chose to believe that I was no longer connected. My power wasn't inside me. It was out there. It was with somebody who knew a little bit more than me, or had a little bit studied something different than me in school, or I just handed it over. And when you lose your own power, when you lose your own faith in your own voice, in your own guidance system, you lose your way. You are lost. And I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know, the significance of the power draining out of you and simply giving it and placing it in somebody else's hands because you're too helpless and too weak to remember that you are connected to everything, to source, to nature, to everything on this earth, and to God. You're divinely connected in so many ways. And so breaking that connection to the universe, to life itself, to everything we evolved from and came from, that we all share the same stardust. We all are part of this interconnected web and miracle that we call life. An ecosystem that we're all in together, and that we are the all-knowing, we are the source, we are from which it came. So when you forget that moment, you have to do a lot of healing work. And it's not to forgive the other person, and it's not even to forgive yourself, but it's to remember that we are all connected and we're all part of this web and of this design in life, and that we're all powerful and that we all hold the keys. We're all just a part of this big puzzle, and that we're so connected, that we are nature, that we're connected to nature, we are nature, and we are the divine. We're connected to the divine, and we're guided every day in big and small, intuitive ways that are more powerful than anything we could ever know. And so again, the lesson that I learned over the last decade is, yeah, it's about forgiving the other person. Yeah, it's about forgiving yourself, but it's about coming home. It's about taking your power back. It's about coming back, coming home and realizing it's the moment that you realize. It's that moment like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, that when she realizes, it's that moment. It's not everything that happens before, and it's not everything that happens after. It's that moment that she realizes that she does have the power. She is the power, and she's divinely connected to everything, and she always knew the answers. And that's what we as human beings forget. And that's what we're here on this journey to remember. And so it's at these big crossroads where we forget, but ultimately, if we let ourselves be open and we do all the work it takes to get there, we get to a place where we ultimately remember. We remember that we are connected to everything, and that the answers are inside us all along. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I hope it was helpful. I hope I shared something that might be helpful and might help you not take as long as I took to get to a place that you already know is a place that your soul is pointing you to, is a place, you already have answers that you don't want to look at. You already have wisdom that you're avoiding and ignoring. And so it's time now to look inside.